everybody, welcome back to JRE in a nutshell. This week has been challenging because Joe was a busy fucking bee last week and he did 5 fucking interviews. But don't worry, that doesn't mean you're gonna have to, or I'm gonna recommend you to listen to 15 hours of interviews. Most of them, ironically, were kind of boring. So I think this is actually in general 1 week that you could take off JRE totally and you wouldn't miss much. But because there's so many interviews, I'm gonna keep my opinion shorter, maybe to 45 seconds, maximum 1 minute, so I don't make this whole video a bit like so long, longer than 15-20 minutes. That's too long in my opinion. So I will keep opinions a bit shorter. I will keep the timestamp as short as possible as well, and I will put timestamps for my episode also, so you can click and for each of the opinions, since there are gonna be 7 videos different videos, I'm gonna put a timestamp for my video as well. So yeah, looking very much forward to this challenge, and I hope you are too, and let's start. So first of all, Sam and Colby. These are 2 kids that have a YouTube channel about paranormal situations, so haunted houses and ghosts and Dracula and all of this, not only legends, but also actual stories, and they visit houses and haunted houses. I don't find this very interesting, all of this paranormal activity, so for me it wasn't a very interesting episode. I would probably give it 2.5 maybe nuts, because not even the 15-minute preview I would find interesting. But if you like paranormal stuff, check it out. I'm sure that you will find it interesting. Now Sam Baker. Sam Baker, he used to work for the CIA, and nowadays he has some intelligence security company. I was very interested when I saw that this guy used to be a CIA agent, and I thought, cool, maybe he has something interesting to say, some whistle to blow. Now they've been talking a lot about JFK and all of this conspiracy. Maybe he has news to say. Absolutely nothing. Everything that he said I knew. It was nothing controversial. He said everything in the CIA was always awesome. He has no bad words to say towards his company, his former company, and his former colleagues. So nothing interesting. He said some interesting stuff about Martin Luther King and some conspiracy about he was killed, but otherwise it's nothing new for me. Nothing super interested. It's interesting. The guy wasn't that informed, in my opinion. It's an episode that wasn't necessary, in my opinion. So if you're interested, check it out, but I give it 2 nuts, maybe even 1.5 nuts, I could say. I was trying not to give anybody under 2, but this episode was quite boring. So yeah, there you go. So, and now Sonny from Best Ever Food Review Show. This guy is quite cool. His personality is nice, so I enjoyed the interview. The topics were not so interesting to me because I am not really into exotic foods and all that stuff. I am into exotic cultures. So they were talking about when he flew all over the world to Southeast Asia, mostly Africa, and all of these weird foods they had. This I didn't find so interesting. I mean, it's surprising that he eats scorpions and snakes and monkeys and all this shit. Dessert. But I found it more interesting is when he spoke about the cultures themselves, why they eat this stuff, and for example, there was a very interesting argument about some island in the Faroe Islands where they fish whales, which is in theory the worst thing you can do ever, and he gives like the anthropological reason why that's actually okay. They don't endanger the species and all that stuff. I find it, of course, controversial. I don't think you should fish whales, but these people been doing it for 1,000 years, and they do it in a way that it doesn't affect the environment. So why not? They also have an interesting conversation about some rules in Egypt, that actually some exposure that he did made some laws in Egypt change. I found that cool. Good for him. But otherwise, if you like exotic foods, definitely check it out. If you like traveling, even like a lot, cultural, anthropological, you can check it out. Definitely. I found it kind of interesting. I would give it 3.5 nuts. Definitely check out the highlight that Joe posted on his YouTube channel, because it's about this hallucinogen honey, which I found also pretty interesting. Some honey that you eat and gets you high. I thought, yeah, cool. And yeah, but otherwise, yeah, 3.5 nuts, not more than that. And yeah, that's it. Now, Matt McCusker and Shane Gillis. This episode was definitely not necessary. It's just well, Shane Gillis is a good friend of Joe Rogan. We know that he comes often to the show. No, maybe not that often. Well, I would say very often compared to others that come once a year in the best case scenario. This guy shows up 2-3 times a year. Either in the Save the Parks or whatever. But I don't think this episode was necessary. It's just the friend of Shane asking for the favor to do the show. It's not really that interesting. It's not really that... I mean, it's kind of funny because they're all comedians, of course, but not necessary. You don't definitely need to watch it. 2 nuts. And that's it. So, and now Andrew Santino. I decided to timestamp this episode, not because it was particularly good in general, but because it was the least boring, let's say, of all of them. They do have pockets of good information, so I think it's the best episode where you don't have to watch everything, but pay attention to the timestamps and just watch the 20-30 minutes of information that you find interesting, because they speak about everything. They change subjects every 3-4 minutes. It was a huge challenge also to timestamp this episode because they are all over the place, but I think I did okay. I hope you understand. Remember that I'm just gonna put the main topics, but on the description you will find all the subtopics that are also changed a little bit as well. It's kind of connecting to the main topic, but not always the same. So yeah, they speak. I thought it was a bit kind of how do I say, peaceful, or finally something does it. That they spoke about Benedict. Everybody's like, Pope Benedict died, and a good person is gone or whatever, and all of this praise to him. Nobody remembers that this guy used to protect pedophiles, and he relocated priests that were having sex with children. And it's crazy, this happened 10 years ago, and when he died I was like, yeah, finally this evil person is dead, and everybody's like, don't you forget. So finally Joe speaks about it, and I thought finally somebody talks about it, and because in the newspapers it's everything, the best guy ever. So they speak about that. They speak a bit about MK Ultra. I found that super interesting. They speak a bit about some other controversy. Oh yeah, aliens and UFOs. That's also pretty cool. So yeah, check out the timestamp. I don't think you need to check it out fully. They also speak about UFC, about golf, a lot about golf. If you like golf, cool, but I don't know, I don't care much. So yeah, check out the timestamp, and I think this is the perfect example for you to go and watch pockets of information. So yeah, in general, 4 nuts, and go to the next part of the video, timestamps, and pay attention and check out the parts you like. So now we go to the Andrew Santino timestamps. This was by far the most difficult episode I've had to timestamp. They speak about everything, so many different subjects. They change subjects every 2-3 minutes. So bear with me. There's a lot of subjects, and I'm gonna mention subjects, and I'm gonna mention sub-subjects, so subtopics and subtopics, let's say. I'm not gonna put the subtopics here, but they will be down in the description, so you have them there if you want to read. Also sources, they speak about so many people. You will see the list of personalities is huge. I even added a new category called events, because they also speak about some events that happens once a year and stuff, and I thought that was cool. Movies, a lot of documentaries and stuff. So this was pretty challenging. So let's start. They start talking about stand-up, and for a minute, literally, then they move to bikes. Bike accidents, that takes them to car accidents, that takes them to jetpacks, flying cars, and drones, like competition kind of drones. Then they change to golf and pool when it comes to the skills, like the skills that someone has, someone when it's amateur and someone when it's professional. and they talk about tournaments, pool and golf tournaments, darts also, and they move to injuries, skiing injuries, so injuries that happen when you're skiing. Then they go back to jetpack, but in the injury kind of direction. Also golf. That's how they start the golf conversation with also injuries and stuff. And they move to Cirque du Soleil, and they talk about the Beatles, the show Cirque du Soleil Beatles and the Beatles music. That takes them to hip hop, which takes them to the Godzilla soundtrack. It's crazy, this shit is totally crazy. Then from Godzilla they go to King Kong, then they talk about the Exorcist, then they talk about demons and believing in demons and death. So basically what happens after death mostly. Then that takes them to Pope Benedict's thing. So you can start, if you're interested about this subject, you can start at 1 hour 3 minutes. This just go directly, click on the link that I put down on the Spotify, that takes you to the channel, and start at 1 hour 3 minutes. You can skip this 1 hour unless you're interested about any of these things that I just said. So Pope Benedict's death, the controversy, the Vatican and controversies about the Vatican, religions, cult and cult leaders, the Bible and the language Latin. They speak about a little bit about the language Latin, about religious rules that religion puts on the people that follow that religion. They explain what is I learned myself, what means soaking and jump humping. Hilarious, super funny. They speak about teenage fertility, procreation, artificial wombs, and the soul itself. That takes them, so this is all in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. That takes them to aliens and UFOs. I found that also quite interesting. What is the current situation? What the government actually did admit and did not admit. They spoke something about aliens during COVID, but because of COVID, that kind of took on a second plane. So nobody really found out. But they explain, like Joe especially, he explains what's actually really going on. What's the truth? So UFOs, the action of seeing a UFO, what would happen. Then that takes them to retirement communities. And that takes them to stand-up comedy and performing rooms. It's crazy. They jump so many subjects. That takes them to starting new projects, the feeling of starting new projects, new experiences. Like, for example, Andrew moving to New York. That takes them to the traffic, LA traffic, helicopter flying because of the traffic, single engine planes, that takes them to airplane shows, the G-forces that one experiences when flying, and what gurning is. Gurning, which is what is to make faces. Is it then the G-force makes you make this face, and they talk about gurning. You Google it, it's funny. That takes them to jesters. So like the people that used to make fun of the king and like the joker of the kingdom, let's say. Joe likes to talk about that. They speak about that a lot. He speaks about that a lot, let's say. Then also they speak about the comedy drain. So what a person feels after doing a comedy show, they feel all drained and tired. Killing the messenger, like it's about jesters. That takes them to torture techniques. That's I found also quite interesting. So torture techniques, the Mongol torture techniques, old and current situation. What's the difference? What we used to do to each other before and now. Then torture methods, exhumation, involvement, the body trade. What does that mean? Pretty interesting and crazy. I never knew about this. Organ reconstruction surgeries, the Tibetan sky funeral, and cemeteries. That takes them to MK Ultra. They speak about the CIA, of course, Charles Manson, Jack Ruby's gun. That takes them to collectibles because they speak about who bought this gun, and baseball cards also when it comes to collectibles. As I said, they speak about everything. That takes them to golf, and they talk about Live Golf, which is apparently the new Arabic version or Saudi version of the PGA, and how famous golfers are moving there, and all of this, the Saudi investment in sports, because they also want to buy the WWE, and the PGA stands on this, and the PGA way that they do things, golf and business. Then they compare it to the UFC, and they speak about Bellator, which is the second league, They talk about the Waste Management Open, which is one of the events I thought it was interesting. They go back to UFC. They speak about now something happening this year, an indoor golf tournament, which is basically digital. Then they go to Tiger Woods and they go back to injuries. They speak again about injuries, but in this case knee. They talk about knee exercises that you can do to strengthen your knees. They talk about ab workouts as well, and then they speak about kicking mainly, not boxing, kicking, and the feeling of kicking and knocking people out, and what's the feeling of knocking people out, and what is more practical on the street in a realistic situation to kick or punch. Then Andrew asked Joe how long he will be a UFC commentator. He talks about that. He talks about his future. Then Andrew talks about his future. Then they speak about playing golf with Michael Jordan. Then they talk about the top athletes, of course, Jordan being one of them. That takes them to the big city culture, how Andrew moving to New York because they like this big city culture. And then they speak about dog licks, like because Ari likes when the dog is licking in his mouth. And they speak about this for the last, 5 minutes. And I agree, it's disgusting. I also let my dogs lick me only in the face, but in the mouth it's disgusting. So that's the timestamp. I know it went long because they speak about so much stuff. And as I said, normal standard episode, maybe pockets of information. You want to go straight to the times where you found it interesting, watch those 20-30 minutes, and then that's it. I completely understand. I would do the same. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. And that is a wrap for another JRE in a nutshell. Thank you very much for listening to my episode, guys. I don't know how long it's gonna go because, of course, this I know only after the editing. But I think I went a bit longer today because of the 5 episodes last week. I apologize about that. I'm putting timestamps on each of my opinions as well, so you can skip my stuff if you don't want to listen to some of them. Totally understand. Thanks again for listening. Talk about me, share me wherever you want, in Instagram, in Twitter, in I don't know if you watch Vimeo or whatever, TikTok or whatever the hell you use. I really appreciate it. Drop me a comment if you have ideas, opinions, anything you want to say. I'm all ears, and I will be answering the comments. And yeah, thanks again. I hope you like it, and I will see you next week. Peace.